Black Caucus is committed to supporting and standing with the Caribbean, and that, of course, includes Jamaica. I'm proud to have worked with then Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller in 2012 and 2013 as she brought Jamaica back from the brink of financial collapse, in large part through her successful negotiation of an agreement with the International Monetary Fund that prevented financial chaos and stabilized the Jamaican economy. When I agreed to come, I decided that I really wanted to spend some time on this issue, even though you've heard about it earlier this evening, because it's so important for Jamaicans to understand the role that Portia Simpson Miller played and the persistence that she exhibited and the passion with which she talked about what had to be done. And sometimes those who are the beneficiaries of this kind of passion and work take it for granted and think, oh well. And I never want you to do that. I want you to understand that this magnificent woman did an extraordinary thing. And I want you to know that it's so important that women get credit for their work. It is important that women get credit for their work because historically, all over the world, we've been denied opportunity because they say, well, we don't know if women can do this kind of thing. We don't know if they can rise to the occasion. We don't know if they're competent enough. You know, this is man's work. And so, when we are accomplished and successful, and we demonstrate that not only can we rise to the occasion, but most of the time we can do it better than anybody else. So, Portia, I want you to know I came here today, as they say in the church, to testify. I first became aware of the crisis faced in Jamaica in November of 2012 when my friend, Ambassador Carl Masters, reached out to my good friend, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, and the two of them reached out to me and a few other members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Ambassador Masters explained the urgent need for the IMF to make assistance available to Jamaica and the dire consequences for Jamaica's economy if the IMF refused to do so or insisted on onerous conditions. Now, for those of you who know Ambassador Carl Masters, you know when he sets out to accomplish something, to convince somebody, you cannot get out of his grip. He will talk, he will leverage, he will do everything possible to make sure you really understand. And after you tell him, I get it, I understand, he keeps talking. And so I want you to give him a big round of applause because he has been key in making sure that Portia and I work together. Thank you, Ambassador Carl Masters. We discussed the crisis at length with the Prime Minister. She communicated to us her sincere and heartfelt concerns about the economic conditions in Jamaica and helped us to understand the seriousness of the situation. She told us how hard she was working to secure the assistance of the IMF, and she vividly described what could happen to Jamaica's economy without it. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller was profoundly concerned for the people of Jamaica, its business people, its workers, children, and families. She did not want to see businesses lose access to credit. She did not want to see workers lose their jobs. She did not want dedicated public servants to be unable to collect their salaries. And she did not want children and families to suffer. I was highly motivated by the Prime Minister's commitment to the people of Jamaica. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it was her passion that motivated me to work so hard within the halls of the United States Congress, to do everything within my power to make certain that Jamaica got the assistance that it needed. So I got together with a small group of members of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke again, Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congressman Charles Rangel, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And the five of us decided to work together to obtain a fair deal for Jamaica. We held meetings on Capitol Hill to coordinate our efforts, and we had frequent conference calls with Governor Brian Winter of the Bank of Jamaica. We also strategized with the Honorable Peter Phillips, Jamaica's Minister of Finance. Without this process, Ambassador Carl Masters, throughout this process, played a critical role bringing us together and keeping us focused. We wrote a letter, several letters, letter after letter, to Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the IMF, stressing over and over again the urgent need for IMF assistance without onerous conditions. On December 21st, we decided that perhaps Christine Lagarde was not getting all of the information that we were sending to her. And you know how that works. You have those at all levels of big organizations thinking they're exercising their responsibility. And sometimes they're slowing things down. Sometimes the message does not get to the top. And so we decided we were going straight to the top. Straight to the top. And so I remember calling her and saying, we have to come over and we have to do it now. We had no appointment. We had not alerted her. And she was very gracious. She said, by all means, come over right now. And so we went, Carl Masters, right there with us. And she welcomed us. We went into her part of this huge organization, and we began to talk. And as it was said earlier, I will never forget the role that she played. This is a woman of tremendous influence. This is a woman who knows the economics of the world. This is a woman who holds the kind of position that when she really decides to get things done, she can get them done. And so, after that meeting with her, for the first time, I really do believe that she understood and took into consideration what really needed to be done. She called her people in, she listened, she talked, and from that point on, things did begin to happen. We, on that day, talked with her, stressing over and over again the urgent need for IMF assistance, again without these onerous conditions. So, we also at that time contacted Timothy Geithner, who was the United States Treasurer Secretary of the Treasury, urging him to promote constructive dialogue between the IMF and Jamaica. As the negotiations dragged on into the new year, we raised the issue with our colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus. Then on January 17, 2013, we sent another letter to Director Lagarde, urging her to bring the negotiations to a prompt and successful conclusion. And this letter was signed by 25 members of the Congressional Black Caucus. I continued to monitor the situation after a staff-level agreement was announced by the IMF on February 15th. On April 2nd, I wrote to Director Lagarde again, expressing our disappointment that the board of the IMF had yet to approve that final agreement, despite the fact that Jamaica had complied with all of the requirements put forth in the staff-level agreement. In that letter, I said to Director Lagarde that she should ensure that there were no additional conditions and that there was no need for any additional conditions to be imposed upon Jamaica. I also urged her to bring that agreement to the IMF board for its long overdue approval. She indicated upon receiving that letter her disappointment that the board had not moved faster, and she was going to make sure that it was going to get done. So finally, on May 1st, 2013, the IMF announced that its executive board had approved a $932.3 million arrangement under its extended fund facility for Jamaica. Our efforts had finally paid off, but that it did not end there. When it became apparent that the fiscal austerity imposed by the IMF on Jamaica was counterproductive and in fact was becoming an obstacle to economic growth, I wrote to President Obama in July of 2015, calling on him to urge the IMF to revisit the terms of Jamaica's IMF program. And of course, I was joined on that letter by Representatives Yvette Clarke, Gregory Meeks, Sheila Jackson-Lee, and Charles Rangel. We were successful in pressing the IMF to provide Jamaica some additional breathing space, specifically by lowering the country's primary surplus target for the following 2 years. I'm pleased to report that the IMF now views Jamaica as one of the brighter success stories in the entire Western Hemisphere. According to the IMF, the program has been a success, as both the previous and current governments have taken ownership of the program and have committed to carrying out its reforms, and the Jamaican economy is doing better as a result. What I would like to make clear, however, is that this progress could not have been possible, of course, without the political commitment of the Jamaican government to reform and the sacrifices made by the Jamaican people. I consider it an honor and privilege to have been able to work with Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and to assist Jamaica at such a critical time. And so I'm very happy to be able to join her today and to thank her for her years of service to the Jamaican people.